Yep. Give me a nod when you're ready.
Like
Shooter's ready. Stand by.
Hey everyone, this is Matt Gunlock from the 3GIQ podcast. I'm joined here with my co-host Frank Gow. We have two special guests. We have JK and we have Donna Eberle. This episode again is kind of a prequel before the match, kind of give information about the Duskin. And JK, if you can kind of go into who Mike Duskin was and what makes the Duskin 3-gun so special. And Donna, you can kind of go off onto that as well.
Yeah, so JK here. So Mike Duskin, it was us Chief Warrant Officer to Mike Duskin. He was on ODA 3116. And in 2012, he was killed in action. But that doesn't necessarily define who Mike was. It's just a sacrifice that he kind of laid down. As a lot of guys that serve, he's a husband and father, obviously, a warrior at that. And he was a huge competitive shooter too. And, with that, part of the match, the reason why we throw the match in his honor is, one, he was just a huge physical guy. That's why it's a physical match. But he really had a passion for competitive shooting and wanting to get his peers, or just the ones that he served with left and right, and even the future ones, to get into competitive shooting. It's a term that a lot of us use within the military, and just even in sports, anything is competition breeds excellence. And, Mike believed that to the core from those that, really knew him the closest. So, after his passing, Mike was, Will and a few other guys that had served with Mike, they created the match in his honor. And Donna can get a little bit into it, but at first, they kind of just stumbled through it, slapped it together, and then it was a huge hit. Guys loved it, but above all else, it's honoring Mike, his legacy, honoring him, honoring the other fallen within the soft community of Third Group, and then his passion for competitive shooting and getting guys into the sport. And, with Mike, if no one ever knows him, I hadn't really seen pictures with him. The guy was like, I think 6'7", 6'4", almost 300 pounds, but like a shredded beast, like not, probably an ounce of fat on the guy. He looked more like a Viking, born a couple centuries too late. But had a very, humble demeanor. Actually, it was funny. I can't remember where it was. I was shooting a match, and I was wearing one of the shirts, and then somebody had shot with Mike before, and they were like, one of the biggest things that they said impressed them about Mike was he was at a match and he got DQ'd. I think when he went to dump his shotgun, it had bounced out. And, as we know, that's, it's grounds for DQ, but they said he could have went home, but he stayed there for the next day and a half at the match, continued to help reset, was helping like coach, mentor others there at the match. So I think that speaks a lot to Mike's character and who he was, as a person, and just his love for the sport. So, the Duskin is just honoring him, man, trying to keep that alive. And then, not so much just with him as well, but like all those that have fallen the sacrifice, and then continuing to get guys into the sport, which at the same time makes them better at what they do, which is shooting and moving, which is a big part of what keeps us alive on the battlefield. So, yeah.
Donna, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, it's kind of funny that JK just mentioned that anecdote about meeting someone at a match who remembered that instance of Mike DQing, because when my husband Will, when I was asking him about just memories of Mike, that was one of the things he said. It's just seemingly small, like blip in someone's existence, like something that normally would be so insignificant, yet two people remember that out of all their time with Mike, and how just such a reflection that small act is on him. But I unfortunately never had the privilege of meeting Mike. We're getting to the point now where a lot of the people who shoot the match don't know him. They know of him, but never had the opportunity to meet him. And I think what we're doing is important because it's tying him to something, bigger than just him as a person, because he was larger than life. And so, we're ensuring the continuation of his legacy and, the things he held important to him. And as far as, what makes the match special is it's held on post. It's hosted. It's really put on for the members of the third group to really, just like JK said, Mike wanted to make them, as much of a lean, trained fighting force. And he saw that competitive shooting was an opportunity for that. We have very specific goals that we try to hold, being honoring fallen and promoting competitive shooting. And I like to think we're doing a pretty good job staying focused on that mission. And like JK said, it's a physical match. Mike wouldn't have wanted it any other way. I've been told he was rarely seen without his shirt off, was constantly in the gym. So, the biggest thing we've always tried to do is keep this match grassroots, just stay to the basics and just do what we set out to do and what we think Mike, how he would have wanted to continue this.
I think that's one of the most beautiful things about it. The whole match is just, just something that's great. It embodies somebody, but it's something that's bigger than himself. And it's a way to keep a memory alive. And I often say, it's up to us as family and service members to keep somebody's memory alive, because those are the only people that are going to do it. The military is not going to do it for us. So it's up to us really to keep that memory going and to keep the mission going in honoring that person and their family.
Yeah, if I could actually add something, Matt, to what makes the match special too. And this is for like people that might not know. And like Donna said, at least within third group, we're getting into a new generation of Green Berets that like some of them they're like, what is the Duskin? Like that was the first year they'd ever heard of it. Just kind of nostalgic for me because 2017, I was even like, what's the Duskin 3-gun? So I think what makes it special is what a lot of people don't realize is like, and I didn't know this until the last match, and I spent some time with Nate, Mike's son, and it really hit close to home because like him and I were sitting on the bench, and right there at the Cadre Hooch, there's like a little bench that's been there God knows how long, and he's like, man, I can remember sitting here watching my dad and Eric Eckhart put up a little shooting array and just go toe to toe for like hours, like talking shit to each other, like shaving off half a second, quarter second, maybe like a hundredths of a second. And he was like just practicing nonstop, like all the time. And like, so I think that's one of the things that makes it special. I don't think a lot of people maybe realize that, like where the match is held, it's like that was his stomping ground. That was where he practiced. That was, his kids have memories of him there on the, the range. So it's just, I think that's the other thing that makes it special. It's like, to have that event there where he worked, where, he practiced and everything else. I think that's huge. I don't think you can replicate that.
No, we've had lots of people say like, oh, you could have it on this land. Like, yeah, we could do tons more things if we did it off post, but we're always walking that line of how to best preserve what we're doing. And, I think it's appropriate that it's always going to be at, where he used to train and work and do what he loved.
No, that's awesome. And Donna, Duskin is renowned to having eye-catching logos, from the T-shirt to the Lady Liberty that you made, to just, the Lambda with the Duskin 3-gun. Can you go kind of talk to us about all three of those logos and where they all kind of originated?
Well, it warms my heart to hear you say renowned, because I actually was a marketing major in college and somehow landed in tactical, military sales for the entirety of my career, which, as you can imagine, anything military, there leaves very little room for creativity. So any opportunity I get to, mess around with kind of marketing, I'm all about it. And when I took over doing match sponsorship, I remember Ben Blanton was the match director that year, and he kind of had a logo as far as so what we consider the match logo is the Lambda with Duskin 3-gun. So he kind of had that framework. I just messed around with some fonts. But we knew that it's important when you're trying to represent something to have something that's, some continuity year after year, just so it's recognizable. But we didn't have anything as far as shirts, something that would go on shirts. And I remember I don't know how I ended up down the rabbit hole, but I saw an image and it was like a picture online, but in the background of the picture on the wall in the photo was hanging this picture of a lumberjack punching a bear. And I was like, man, that's something that, we could use year after year, but tweak. It just reminded me of Mike, this larger than life, fighting this formidable beast. So kind of pitched that to Ben, and then had no idea. I don't think many people knew until maybe last year how the logo is something that we create on our own. So yeah, we have the match logo, which is the Lambda and the Duskin 3-gun, and then obviously each year we have a play on Mike punching something, which we plan on continuing to do. Lady at Liberty this year, honestly, was another, we were looking at getting the social media pages up for the match. Just lots of extensive Googling, and that caught my eye. I wish I could attribute who the original artist is, but I have no idea. It's been changed a million different ways in a million different places, but it's, all the things you want it to be. It's simple, it's eye-catching. You can kind of just look at it real quick and you get a feel for what we're all about. I mean, there's nothing much more American than, Marilyn Monroe is Statue of Liberty holding a shotgun. I mean,
Hell yeah.
Where do you go from there? So I've been extremely fortunate to, be able to utilize, I'll have a little outlet, a creative outlet, in the match, and it's been overwhelming, the reception. I was told once that people were taking bets on what the logo was going to be, and people were buying extra shirts so something may be worth something one year or someday, and that's pretty cool, and it makes me feel like, as far as doing right by what we set out to do, I feel like I've done my part with that.
No, it's awesome. You don't have to answer, but can you kind of give a hint on what this year may be about?
It will be Mike punching something.
Okay.
You know better than to ask that question.
Oh, I know.
We go through lots of different ideas. There's,
it's not
well, okay, I'll say half jokingly. It was right after the whole Chris Rock, Will Smith thing. There was a variation of the shirt. I think I made a version for my toddler of Mike punching Chris Rock. But we got to always figure out what's going to be relevant, what's going to be funny, what's the climate, something that's memorable. But yeah, I guess just have to wait till June.
It's
well,
funny.
we're certainly excited to see what. Go ahead, JK.
No, I was just gonna say it's funny because there's so much planning that goes into this event. I don't think people really know. Like I didn't really know until I sat in the hot seat. But it's almost like the t-shirt is like the one thing that probably gets so much attention when it comes to planning, because I think that was one of the biggest things. No one even hit me up about anything other than you better not mess up the t-shirt. There's so much pressure that comes into that t-shirt. The planning that goes behind it between Donna and I is just. It's kind of astronomical. It's pretty funny. But anyway, that's all I was going to add.
Yeah, the designs and those t-shirts have definitely become a major attracting factor for the Duskin 3-gun. But heading into this year, you guys plan together for 2022. And you alluded to it a little bit before we started recording, that the planning process was already a little smoother this year. But how have things been different this time around? And Donna, we'll start with you.
They've been really different in a lot of extremely positive ways. For one, the biggest thing with me, handling sponsorship is I can only start soliciting sponsors once we know the match is actually going to happen. And in the past, it's been like, I think maybe one year was like April, and I'm like, shit, I need to call like hundreds of people in 2 months and pray that they'll, take pity on me. But this year, JK jumped right away. I mean, I still haven't unpacked from the last match before he, got the go ahead. So we were able to jump on, sponsorship early, and I had an opportunity to kind of polish, the letter we send out, the match prospectus. That's one of the things that getting an early jump has allowed us to do, rather than just, all right, let's just see if we can hurry up and pull this off and just have it happen. We're able to focus on the details now. And all right, what are some things we learned, worked, what didn't work, what can we make, polish, make better, professionalize some things. A big thing we want to do is, kind of create a standard, because the fear has always been, like JK touched on, that, there will come a day where I'm not going to be able to continue my role. JK, it's going to become harder for match directors to step up, especially as they get further away from Mike. We don't know what the future is going to be, with, every year with a different command, it's a lot rides on, the person in charge, how they feel about it, and what their, what they hold important. So, we want to create some sort of standard where if we weren't able to do this, someone could, take, follow in our footsteps, and there's some kind of framework for, all right, how do you, Duskin match 101? Because that's the only way we can ensure, that it continues. The biggest change this year, it's been a massive help to me. Matt has very generously stepped right up to the plate with sponsorship. My year got a little crazier than expected. So that's been huge. And then also in ensuring future matches, one of the biggest things we've done is we wanted to create a Duskin 3-Gun Foundation and tie a nonprofit to the match, which would allow us more flexibility. We have, a lot of times we have people who want to donate, monetary donations, but they obviously want to go to a nonprofit. And at the end of the year, any proceeds we have left over after expenses, we've always donated to, military charities like Duskin Stevens Foundation or the Charitable Trust or Task Force Stagger Foundation in years past. We plan on always wanting to be able to give a portion of that, but we also, having a nonprofit and a foundation would enable us to kind of hold any, excess funds so that we can ensure that the next year, if we don't have someone who can pay for lunch or can foot the bill for t-shirts, that at least our costs, the core costs are covered. Because the biggest goal out of anything, it's great to be able to donate to the charities. It's, great to have a good prize table, but our goal has and always will be, we just want to hold the match. That is the core reason we exist. It's to have the event, hopefully at no expense, personal expense, but this would allow us a lot more flexibility and kind of safeguard, planning for the future.
Yeah, and it's great that you're looking at the longevity of Duskin. Too many cases, really great matches they just go away when the people that have been holding them up and planning them move on to another part of their lives. I'd have to imagine that having JK on as the match director for 2 years in a row has been a huge help as well. You alluded to it a little bit.
Yeah. I can't even express, there's been years past before where, a new match director would come on and be like, hey, so you handled the trophy. I'm like, no, I don't do that. Like, and there's just to understand the roles that each other play. I know what roles and responsibilities JK has. He knows mine. We have a good idea of what each other needs. For example, you know, I'm not, I'm 5 hours from Bragg. When we first talked last year, we talked about the registration area, and I'm like, oh, I'll use this trailer like before, and he's like, yeah, this isn't there anymore. That's not there anymore. I can't visualize those things. So, he doesn't know what I'm expecting. I don't know what's there. So just having that kind of, basic understanding, and then by knowing what each other needs, and, we're able to, we don't have to focus on so much of the big stuff. And then we can get into like, all right, so in addition to just making this happen, how do we make it better? How do we polish it? What are the little details that were big things that we can focus on? Because it's always the little things that end up being, kind of big things in the end. So, yeah, I mean, it's been huge, and we can bounce ideas off each other as to, what went well, what didn't go well, what's in the realm of possible, how can we, make it better.
Yeah, great to hear that. JK, you talked about it a little bit before we started recording, but in terms of the planning process, how has that been different this year for you?
I'd say now that I know what I'm getting myself into and I've done it before. I'd say last year the biggest difference is like I'm calm. Like last year there was an over amount of pressure to get it right, and just to bring it back, and just, all that expectation came with it. So a lot of times I was really stressing just, about every little single piece. And then there were some mistakes made, and they weren't made to where they reflected on the match. It was like, it just cost me lots of sleepless nights. Um, and it was stuff I was like, at the time, I was like, man, I could have done this like months ago. So now, like, as it came up, I like took notes and made them. And then, back actually in January, I started leaning forward and getting stuff together. I already started building like walls. I started resourcing stuff to get like stands, like the RO boxes where it's just like pasties, all that. Like I've already got that all set off to the side. So then I just throw a walkie-talkie, a tablet in there, and a charger, and it's like, here you go. So there's just little things like that I saw, like that I overlooked last time because I was looking at the big picture and didn't take into consideration the finer details. It's kind of like I've been there. I know what I'm getting myself into. I know what to expect. I know what I need to do because I've done it before. And but it's also one of those things. It's not to the point of complacency because there's still that edge, of knowing like, hey, I really got to make this good. Like, came back with a bang last year, so this year I would say I'm having fun with it, even with the planning process. Like, I'm excited. I'm thinking about ideas. I'm building stuff. I think Donna could probably even attest to the difference in my demeanor on my texts and like phone calls. Because usually last year it was like my hair would be on fire, and I'm like, oh my God, I totally wasn't thinking about this. She's like, it's cool. I got this. I already did that. And I'm like, oh. Whereas like this year, I'm like, hey, I already did this, and that. And she's like, oh, okay, well, I don't have to worry about it. And then I'm like, yeah. So I would say with that, to me, I think the difference is, I'm having fun with it this year. And it's kind of more exciting. Whereas last year I was like just a big ball of nerves. So I'm looking forward to it. Like I said, with, this year, I'm not really looking at like making the event better than it was last year. I just want to ensure that it's a great event in its own. And then it's just going to be another memorable year to add on to all the ones before that.
Nice.
So, kind of seeing that it is your second year being the match director, and the stage designs always do incorporate elements of Mike Duskin's character, and shooters do expect to see fitness and military related challenges. Can you give us a hint on what we may or may not see coming up this next match?
Yeah. So I will say there's going to be some things you saw last year in some of the stages that you'll probably see reemerge in a different form. But there's there's some of the stuff where it was like I was going to kind of add a different flavor to it, and I did, but I still incorporated some of the very similar things that were in there. If you recall last time, there was like fast roping. You had like kettlebell carries. You had some tight roping. So with that, there's some of the stuff from last year that'll be in there. And then I also started looking back at all the other years past. That could as much footage as I could get from when I shot the 2017 and 2018. I was able to dig up a video or two of I think it was 2015 or maybe 16. So then I looked at it and I was like, so you're going to see some stuff from past matches. It won't be regurgitated stages, but little bits of pieces from the past show up in there as well. There's one I'm really excited for. I kicked my butt the second year that I shot it. And I was like, yeah, this would be really cool. I think, people enjoy it. And then with it last year, if, for those that didn't get to shoot it, there was the, we renamed it for certain reasons, but it was the surprise cock bag stage where, which is essentially a special delivery honoring a mission by Mike that he had conducted, where they were essentially in a dump truck and ambushed a Taliban checkpoint. So with that, it's kind of hard to. I would just say there's going to be some stages where it's in dedication to other guys that were just as phenomenal and larger than life, as Mike, and that had Mike met him would have been very proud that they did what they did. And so I'm in the works now of like contacting someone, and so there's going to be a stage or two that's going to have a feel to it in honor of an act that was committed, similar like what we did for Mike in the shoot house stage. So you'll get, there's obviously be jacking steel. That's always going to be a stage. It's always going to be the most physical one in the match. But then sprinkled throughout, you're going to get some of that stuff that only guys in the Army, are going to experience that the civilian shooters will get to experience. So I think that's one of the things about the match too, is like you come there, you're sliding down ropes, you're climbing up ladders, you're kicking indoors or whatever else. So it's like the civilians are getting that aspect of it. And, for Army guys, it's kind of like, okay, that's a day in the life usual. But then for them, it's like, okay, I'm seeing a double Texas star. What is this thing twirling all around? So it's like each side of the house is getting a certain feel for something they've never seen before. And then the Death Star, I'll just say that you're going to see that thing show its ugly head
Good.
in the match. And certain little tricks and stuff I have up my sleeve.
Are you gonna make Nate Saskowitz carry or jack up 100-pound dumbbells?
I will say this year. I looked at it last year, and I will say the penalties are going to be stiff this year. It's because the biggest thing I want to make it is like it's physical, but the physicality part is it's a part of it. So you have to be able to shoot and move fast, but you also have to be able to like physically meet the demands, of what you would meet every day if you were, in Mike's field of work. And honestly, Mike, I don't think he would want it any other way. I mean, even Nate told me like at the last year's match, he was like, this is probably the most physical one I've ever seen. And he's like, but I don't think my dad would have wanted it any other way. And I'm not gonna lie. At one point I was kind of worried. I sat back and I was like, man, I wonder if a lot of people are going to be turned off from this because, I'm a very physical person. Sometimes, and some of those stages, I think we talked about in the last podcast. Ben Blanton and Jason Byerly actually kind of had me tone it down a bit because he was like, all right, man, I don't think people are going to be able to like really handle with this. But so back to that, not to get off track. You'll see some flavors of different stuff. From the last match, you'll see a little bit of different stuff show again. It was a big hit that guys, really liked, as well as like paying homage to past matches, and then, paying respects to some guys that have done some pretty phenomenal acts, within their careers. I'm just kind of honoring that.
Real quick, do you want me to bring a 200-pound sandbag for the match?
I've already got plenty of those actually. So. But yeah,
Excited to see what you guys come up with. Just to let you know, I'm already incorporating cutting a zip tie and some other things into my dry fire. So hopefully I'll be ready.
I'll say
But
that's not going to be back this year.
okay, all right.
Or if you want to like be green, reduce your carbon emissions and prep for the match, you can start like pulling your car with your teeth
That
instead
would
of
be a
driving
good
to
one.
work. Just a little tip.
That'll
Okay.
get you ready.
All right. Good to know. But as a match director, JK, you know that the ROs are a major component of having a successful match and making sure that it flows and people know what to do and get from stage to stage on time. So, what's something that you're looking for when you're selecting your RO staff? And then, is there anything that you're going to be doing this year to prepare them differently than what you did last year?
Yeah. So with our staff, the way I structure it is I I get a green beret pretty much per stage, um, and for each one of those guys, I also want them to be familiar with competitive shooting, because obviously there's some things we do within our line of work that are you know like the 180 rule. Like with us, like weapon pointed down, we can turn around and that's fine, right? It's pointing in a safe direction. However, competitive shooting, that's going to get you sent home, because regardless of where it's pointed, it's breaking the 180. Um, but anyway, so they kind of understand both sides of that house, and they're able to kind of coach and mentor the other shooters. And then obviously having usually it's like a green beret or an active duty service member, within the community in some aspect. And then I'll have like two civilians there with them that are used to ROing and part of the USPSA or three gun and that nature. So obviously there's one guy that's being the RO, keeping everyone safe. You got the score, and then you got the other guy kind of pushing everyone along. So that's usually what I'm looking for, and guys with a lot of experience, and then above all else, cool level heads on them. With it, you have an overwhelming majority of those attending not familiar with the sport, or competitive shooting. They're military guys, and that's kind of the reason why I have like a service member there at every stage, just so there's that individual that can kind of cater to that crowd, so to speak. And then never have we ever had an issue to where someone had to basically like pull military rank or anything like that because somebody got unruly. But it's just, if something's going to happen and someone's going to have to like either DQ somebody, I would rather have it be the face of someone that's in the same organization as them. God forbid if it's some service member. So really, I look for experience, know-how, patience above all else, because I want a good experience kept for the shooters, service members, and civilians alike. So that's one of the biggest things I look for is just obviously experience, and then their demeanor, and making sure everybody's getting a fair shot and getting the same look, and then obviously having a good match. What was the other part of your question? Sorry, I drew a blank.
What are you doing to prepare them differently this year, if at all?
Yeah, so for this year, a lot of stuff actually. Some of the mistakes I made. So the staff match. So pretty much any active duty service members that work the match, they also get to walk the prize table. So in order to do that, I have to prove all the stages the day prior to the staff match, which is fine. But then last year, one thing I overlooked is the day before the main match is when we did it. But what I didn't take into account, and we said before, the Duskin is a very physical match. The RO, the staff, the ROs that were shooting the match, they ran their own stages, which is fine, but then they reset them. They also shot them, and then they went through the whole day shooting, and then they showed up for 2 more days, resetting and running the stages. So they were a little beat down by that third day. And so like one thing for prepare them is I'm bringing in some extra staff to like open and close the ranges, help with resetting, just so they're not as smoked going into the actual match itself. Like I remember my buddy of mine, Dave, Dave Palmer, he was the RO for stage 2, and it wasn't so bad for the other 2 ROs that were like keeping score and resetting, but for him, like running the guy through, he's like, man, I've jumped out of that window like probably 250 times. He was beat. So
is that the one where you drag the tire?
Yeah, you drag the tire, shoot the long
Yeah.
range from the tank trap. Yeah, and then that's where you, like Frank said, when you cut yourself when you're like breaking out of prison, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, that was that stage. So in preparing them basically physically, it's to get them a little bit more help on the staff match day. So that way, they're going to help reset, but it's like someone else can lift the tire and like put it back where it needs to be at, or somebody else can drag Randy back to where he needs to go. And so they're not doing it umpteenth million times. And then, it's in June too, so it's really hot. And then I didn't do it last time because I had so much other stuff going on. This year I plan on kind of creating like a group chat with all their ROs, put out information, kind of streamline that process. I had a very brief meeting with them last time. I made sure that every stage knew, but it was kind of, I don't say disorganized, but compartmentalized, probably a better word. Because I would go to each individual like set of groups of like, hey, this, instead of getting them all together at once and then putting out some guidance. I think that would make it easier on me because now I'm not going to 7 different places, telling them to do this, that, and the other. So yeah, I would say in doing that, just kind of getting them a little bit more informed, putting out timely information and stuff like that.
I got a quick
Good stuff.
follow-up. We kind of talked about RO help, and I know JK pretty much has a lot of the ROs solidified. Well, I was gonna ask Donna a question, but I'll ask you, JK. If somebody isn't able to, volunteer to RO, is there any other capacity in which they could help?
Actually, yes, there are. So this year, what's hurt me so far and the biggest is a lot of the people that help service members, they're going to be gone due to operational requirements, deployed and whatnot. So almost half of the people, more than I say, almost 3/4 of the people that helped me last year kind of, aren't going to be here this year, which it's fine. I know Donna, she needs help with certain things. Like whenever they deliver the food, helping prep plates, pushing it out to all the ROs while they're working the match, helping set stuff up, whether it's for the prize table, even coming out during construction time. Like, there's always stuff. A lot of time when it comes to construction, Jason Byerly, he came out there, and I'm not, Jason will downplay it whatever he wants to. He'll say it was all you. I built the stages. I had them sketched out, and I started building it. He came in and helped me refine them.
Mm-hmm.
And then, not to get off the topic of that question, but that's kind of the part of the having fun this year is I learned a lot from that man. And when it comes to, stage design and stage planning, as far as the flow of a match, timing, hey, if you got a longer stage here, then you make up for it by having a quick reset. So this year I even told him that, hey man, like, I just want to build everything. And then I want you to come through like 2 days, 3 days out, and let's go through them together, and then like mentor me some more so I can like build on what, I learned in the past. But obviously with that, I mean, there's always like props and stuff that got to be painted. Coming out like, honestly, last year, like I was running around doing a lot. Like it'd be awesome to just have somebody, their sole job out there is like making sure all the coolers are filled up, making sure that there's ice where it needs to be at. So there's little areas where I can use people. I mean, a lot of times it might be just be hanging out, but it's stuff that makes, a little bit easier on Don and I, as the match is actually getting executed.
And I asked because people have come and asked, hey, where can I help? And so I'm going to pass that information to them, and they'll hear it from you too on this podcast.
There's tons of, I wouldn't say there's tons of ways. The biggest thing is always, and some of it sucks because like it has to be service members, because like we're going to have like the drivers and stuff moving everything. It's going to be, military vehicles and stuff like that. So just due to the regulations of the Army, like got to have service members being the ones, operating the equipment. But like I said before, there's just little things like serving food, making sure the coolers are stocked up. There's plenty of ice. Like I think last time we had somebody go do an emergency run for some paint, because we went through a lot faster. I've kind of planned for some of that stuff this year, but there's little ways, man. And a lot of it, it seems like if I said like, hey, I just need you to fill up the things, you're like, oh, that's not a lot, but like it's one less thing I got to worry about. And I'm out like making sure the stages are flowing properly, something's broken, got to fix it. There's a backup at one stage. How can I start getting people through faster? Ensuring that the match gets done. So yeah, I would say one biggest thing is just reach out, just ask and be like, hey, I'm available these dates. And then I can employ you somehow.
Yeah, and
Awesome.
the easiest way is, if you send a message through the Instagram or Facebook pages, it's both of them is at Duskin 3 Gun. If you're interested in helping out, one thing I would ask is if you shot the match in years past, we're just there watching, or we're a sponsor, we would love, love, love feedback of any kind, good, bad. You've got an idea that seems out there. That's the biggest thing on my end to ask for, because that's the only way. So, either one of those ways, just reach out to us. If you know someone, a company who hasn't sponsored in the past, who would like to sponsor in any way. But all those things JK just mentioned, all those little things we learn that we need, speaks to that continuity piece, because you're so smoked by the end of the match that writing down notes of things that didn't work, or, with match reps in the past, it's like, it doesn't happen. It's an afterthought. And, so I'm sure match reps in the past ran into those same issues, but they weren't ever, recorded. And it's understandable, because match ends, you're back to your daily life. You're 9 to 5. So having that continuity, we can keep record of all those things and, know how to make it better.
So, kind of going on with that, being that this is your second year, again, JK, how has there been any change or any progress made, since this is held on a military base, dealing with the Fort Bragg leadership?
Actually, problems, no. Overwhelming support as far as, because anything. Actually, today I sat into a meeting up at headquarters, and it was pretty much like, you name it, give it to us. There's a lot of stuff I was like, hey, I'll handle this. And they're like, no, we got it. So I'd say from even like, the operations shop, S3, they're all over it. The command team, they fully support it. And even all the way up into like USASOC. I think the USASOC CG plans on coming out. I guess he, attended the Memorial 3 Gun. So he's like all about, these type of events. And he's, a buddy of mine, Sean Fleener, that works up there. First, he was like, hey, is really enthused about it. Wants, never heard of it. Wants to come out and see all about it. So I'd say the overwhelming support is there for it, I think, and to make sure it's an enduring event. So I'd say this year around, it's kind of like everyone's expecting it. I had people reaching out around January, like, hey, when is the Dustin? What are the dates? Is it happening again? Like, yeah. So, it's getting the exposure that it once had. And I think the support. And then the benefit too of like where I'm at now, being the NCOIC out there at range 65, is like when I do my calendar, like I put it in there. So it's already been made aware. Everyone in group, up at leadership's tracking, okay, this is, an enduring event for the Advanced Skills Company, ASC. So I would say no issues as far as that goes. It's pretty positive this year. And then getting me what I need to.
And I got a follow on for you, Donna. With that being said, JK's been handling the military leadership side, and we've been handling more of the sponsorship side. Would you say the level of support that we've had this year has kind of, met your expectations or exceeded your expectations?
Matt, you can testify to this, that there's a good majority of sponsors who, not that we want to wait to the last minute, but worst case scenario, if we did, we could call them a week before the match if something happened, and they might not be able to support in the same capacity they always do or would like to, but they would do whatever they could, move mountains to sponsor the match in some way. So I'm, every year, and I'm glad, Matt, you're getting to see this, because I couldn't, it's like you wouldn't believe it if I told you without experiencing it. Again, like we can't offer the same return on investment or, from a monetary business standpoint that other matches can. And we can't even post hang banners. So there's, having to turn sponsors away. They want to do more, but we're so restricted in what we can do. I mean, it's pretty amazing to have sponsors reach out to us.
I remember looking at one of the emails, like I sent an email to LaRue and I would say within 15 minutes, Mark LaRue emailed me back saying, we're plank holders, we're in, we're not going anywhere. And it's just like, wow, Travis Fogel from Vortex, like, hey, frickin', we're supporting. We're also sending somebody out there to help support you guys. Let us know how he can best be employed. It is pretty amazing.
I mean, it's amazing even by itself, but then considering, a lot of these guys, they have to pitch their, they have a certain amount of marketing or promote, sponsorship they will do this every year. Some of those things will give a tangible return. Some won't. And this is not one of those matches where you can put a dollar figure. I mean, yeah, you've got special forces community, seeing your product on the prize table, but it's not the same like other matches, and we get that, and it just makes us so much more appreciative. But on the flip side too, I tell sponsors, and I really believe it, that it doesn't go unnoticed amongst the people who are there. It kind of almost, the sense is that the sponsors who support this event have the purest of intentions and their hearts are in the right place, and it makes it all the more appreciated. So, I mean, it's just, I want to say sponsorship's great and I'm surprised, but at this point it's like, I'm not, because that's just how this event is. And we've just been beyond lucky. We still have a long ways to go, but I stopped freaking out a couple years ago because I just know that as long as we keep doing things right, keep our goals, centered and focused, that it'll all come, because they believe in what we're trying to do. So, I mean, there's no other words to describe it. I mean, just very fortunate.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It, like you said, you've been doing this a while, so you're not as necessarily blown away, but it's like I remember like texting the two of you in the group chat. It's like, oh my God, we just got this sponsor. Oh my God, we just got this sponsor. This is awesome. Like these people are just like sending stuff back as soon as we can. It's like, that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the first couple years it did. It's like you get one sponsor and I'd be messaging or emailing the match and like, oh my God, we got this. And now I'm like, oh, I'll wait a couple more because, and it's not that we take it for granted, because we don't. But it's just, and I wouldn't say it's an expectation, but it's just, I don't know, it is how it is. And I hope it always will be that way. And if, I always say if there's anything, yes, we're limited, but if there's anything we can do to, within our confines, to better, thank our sponsors or, whatever we can do, we'd love the feedback. But yeah, we're just hope it'll be another great year, and sponsors are a big part of that.
Well, I think it's a testament not just to Mike Duskin, showing the character that he has and the legacy that he's left, but a testament to, all the match directors who have ran that match, and a testament to you, Donna, like everything that you've done on the administrative and sponsorship side to reach out to those sponsors, that like these companies and these individuals that we contact, it's special to them because they know what the mission is something that is greatly appreciated and extremely important.
And thank you. And that's why, like, we're so selective, and do we need help? Heck yeah, we do. But we also have to be selective because everyone who's interfacing with sponsors or anything to have to do with the match itself, It's representative of the event. It's representative of Mike. It's representative of third group by proxy. And, you know, that reputation follows you. And so it's very important that we keep doing the right things. And, you know, my favorite is when there's still a handful of sponsors who have, you know, every now and again, I'll get an email saying, oh, I shot with Mike or I knew Mike. Super cool, especially considering I didn't. So that they're doing it and they're stoked about it, not, you know, for so many other reasons. I still love getting those emails.
Yeah. Sounds like the planning is going along really well for this year, guys. I am really excited to come out in June and shoot the match, and really looking forward to it. Looking forward to meeting you guys in person, experiencing the match. And I would have to say that like it's already starting to outside the military shooting community. One of the pieces of feedback I got from the last podcast we did was from a USPSA shooter in the Raleigh area. And he's like, I had no idea what the Duskin was. I've heard about it before. I didn't realize what the intent was. I didn't realize it was a memorial match. And that's awesome that it happens every year. And I hope it keeps going. So thank you guys for all the hard work and effort that you've put into it. But at this point, is there anything else that you want to leave the listeners with? And Donna, we'll start with you.
Maybe I just wish we could kind of go back and, you know, it's tough. The better it is each year. It's like with the logo, you're kind of like, all right, can we, you know, put our expectations back down? Because just the pressure is more and more and more from every aspect. Like, what crazy stages is JK gonna have? What's the logo gonna be? You know, and it's great to challenge ourselves, but it's also an enormous amount of pressure, which is part of the fun. But I mean, really, we just nothing can describe Saturday, prize table day, just the vibe that's out there. It's always what I look forward to the most of all. I mean, it's like all this craziness for, you know, months and months, and then just that 20 minutes. If you could bottle just the emotion and everything, that's what makes it worth it every year. So I'm greatly looking forward to that. Just seeing, you know, people who've become like family to me out there. You know, those last, you know, couple minutes of Dustin every year, it's like something you almost fall into like a depression afterwards, because it's like all is right with the world, and then I come back home and you're like, there's traffic, there's, you know, mean people, there's, you know, there's just nothing like it. It's very addicting, and it's just wonderful, and it's something you want to just carry with you. So I'm just looking forward to that again, and hoping that we, you know, meet and exceed everyone's expectations.
I'm sure you guys will. But JK, any last words?
Yeah. If there's anything I can leave the listeners with, you know, like I said before, I'm not trying to outdo last year's performance that we did, or any of the other directors, you know, that have done before. But if there's one thing I can say for this year's Duskin is, you know, I'm trying my best to make it probably one of the most like memorable ones, in a lot of ways, just production value, and not to grow it more, you know, outside of what it's meant to be, but just to, you know, have a more polished, refined product that's you know, better for the shooters and all the attendants, and then above all else, honoring Mike. And you know, as I was a kid, my grandfather used to always tell me, he's like, you know, no matter what you do or what it is, he's like, take pride in what it is and give it 100%. You know, and whether I can remember when I was in basic training, man, I like volunteered for some detail, and it was painting freaking the parking stripes in a parking lot. As dumb as it was, you know, I like did my best. You know what I mean? Like that's how my grandfather was. And so, you know, with that attention to detail, and obviously this isn't painting stripes in a parking lot. You know, it's putting on a match that's near and dear to everyone's hearts. I'd say with this year's, some of the stuff we're trying to do is just one, solidify it more of an enduring event, And then, you know, as Donna alluded to with the foundation, doing things to ensure its longevity. And I think with this year, you're going to see it kind of get ramped up a notch, with just the product that we're trying to give everybody. And like I said before, it's mainly because Mike, as much as he wanted to be physical and everything else, he would want it to be a solid event that was not only taken with pride, but also with some hard-earned sweat and, you know, effort. And I think that's the biggest thing. Like, I put a lot of effort in the last years, but I think with this year's, now that I'm hitting the ground running, learning the lessons I did, I'm like, okay, how can I make it better, for everyone? And then not only how do I make it better, but how do I make it better for the next guy that, you know, takes over for me. So I would just say, hey, be prepared for another stellar event. It's going to be one in its own, just as all the other ones were. And other than that, I hope you're working out because you're going to need it.
Yay.
Well, we really do appreciate this. I've gotten so many compliments about the last episode, and how special, like, people, the way you guys speak about it, you know, people remember it. This is one of their favorite episodes, and I hope this one is too. And I know everybody that is registered, they're just so excited. Like, people are putting it all over their Instagram stories, and just it just goes to show how special it is. So thank you both for everything that you guys do. And we look forward to the next time.
Thank you for having us again.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Matt. Appreciate it, Frank. Anytime.
Yep, of course.
Yeah. And to the listeners, we hope you enjoyed this. Please give us feedback. Let us know what you think, and we'll talk to you next time.